Real estate is about freedom, choice freedom, time freedom, and money freedom, and the impact you can make with that freedom. But it doesn't come without cost. Your freedom takes work. That's why Neil Timmins brings together the tools you need to build your real estate legacy, from tips and tricks to interviews with industry titans. It's all here in one place. Real Grit. Let's get to it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Real Grit. I'm here with Gabe Garcia. Gabe's a good friend of mine. He's out of South Florida and has been in this business for quite some time. And he's full of wisdom and knowledge. And I'm excited to talk to him here. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I am great, brother. How are you?
Good. Thanks for, I appreciate you dressing up here to be on the show. Bringing the A game. All right, so you're out of South Florida. Tell us just a little more about your background in business, and then I'll bring you to current. But tell us how you got started and bring us through your background.
Yeah, so I guess you can say I do have a background in business. I was a past drug dealer when I was in high school and college.
Really?
Yeah,
I did not know that. Okay.
that was my first. I guess I probably had also a little side hustles. I remember when we were kids, we used to do like during hurricane seasons, we used to go and like pay people, get paid to like pick up all the trash and the leaves and put people's shutters up. And we would make quite good money on the weekends. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I don't really come from a family of entrepreneurs or anything like that in my immediate family. I went to school for music business at Wholesale in Orlando back in, like 2010, I want to say, somewhere around there. Did that whole thing, was going to go into the music business. At that point in time, hip hop was like my life, and I wanted to be a famous hip hop artist. And I was recording and doing all types of music. But then, like, just when I actually got in the nitty gritty of working in the music business, I realized, like, man, this business sucks. And I love making music, but like the making money, like how you make money in this thing, like just sucks. And the lifestyle it brings also sucks. So got out of that.
It's a lot of glamour, and then it's hard to, once you start peeling back that onion, you really got a sense of it, didn't you?
Real quick. I it didn't even take me a year to figure it out. Although I should have not had to spend $40,000 in student loans to go figure that out. I should have figured that out. There's much easier ways to figure that out, but that's another conversation. Anyways, I just self-taught. Like, I went to the books. I started hitting the books. I realized that, like, okay, I'm broke and I don't have money. Maybe there's something that I don't know about money, and that's probably the reason why I don't have it. So that thought was like a game-changing thought for me, because I listened to that and I'm like, all right, let's go see if I'm right. Let's start reading books about money. And then all of a sudden the money book started coming, and then your brain starts churning, and then you start thinking about things. And then, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books and the Richest Man from Babylon and all these classic financial books started coming in, getting the juices turning, seeing the power in real estate. Loved the idea of like assets pay for liabilities and provide income. I'm like, man, this is great. Like, sign me up. So I started going to seminars and the courses, and then eventually got a coach, and, the rest is history. I think we started this biz back in 2000, like late 13, probably around there.
Somewhere in 2013. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Where are you? So you started it, let's say you started it in the business in 2013. What did you start doing? What section of the business?
So it was wholesaling, because what clicked for me was, like I said, the passive income coming in from the assets to pay liabilities. And so I'm like, okay, great. I understand this. Then the next part was, okay, well, how do I get the cash to do that? Because how do I get the assets? When you're talking about the cash flow quadrant from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's what you're referencing but cash is not cash. While it's an asset, it's not an income producing asset. Right. And I was, at that time, I had got a job, my first like career job, quote unquote, like after college. I was making 30 grand a year working for Humana, the health insurance company. And I was like, okay, I'm making 30 grand a year. The reality is I'm not able to save very much of this 30 grand because most of it's going to rent and food, and there's not much left. I was able to pretty much save anywhere from like $800 to $1,000 a month. That was like the best I can do at that time. But even that, I was like, all right, well, by the time I save enough to put a down payment on a property, like this is going to take forever. Like I'm still going to take me 20, 30 years to retire. And I don't want to wait 20, 30 years to become rich. Like I want to figure this out much faster. So then that's when I started learning about wholesaling, going to the seminars and all that stuff. And I'm like, great, if I can learn to wholesale and I can learn to find the best deals in the market, not only can I make money off of them, but then when I'm ready to buy, I can pick those best deals for myself and keep them in the portfolio. So that was the kind of the initial thought. And one that seems very, very simple in practice, but one that is very, very hard to do in actuality. And we can talk into that, but there's a lot of difficulties and challenges with applying that practice into real life scenarios,
The biggest one has to be staying disciplined.
100%. Staying disciplined, not forgetting why you're doing it, and not getting excited when the cash rolls in, because it's easy to think that it's always going to roll in and it's always going to come and it's always going to be more than what you're bringing in, and that you can just keep growing your business and you'll be able to get there faster. And like, you tell yourself all these things that are not necessarily true, and you believe in it, because at a certain point, especially in the beginning, if you start having success, you become like you get this like sense of like ego grandizement, if you want to call it, but like you think you're the golden child,
Superman,
you have the Midas touch, right? And everything you touch turns into gold, so you'll figure it out,
right? Right. Yes, and then bumps come along the way, right? And then as you scale past yourself, it's not always your ability to replicate yourself is challenging, and sometimes you land people who are better than you, and sometimes they're not quite as good as you, right?
Right.
And there's some interesting uniqueness to that through people. What does the team look like today?
So today I got 4, is that right? Max? Yeah, 4 people in acquisitions, full time. I got 2 people in dispositions. And so when I say acquisitions, all these people are just dedicated to buying houses, right?
Buying property. Yeah,
qualifying leads and buying houses. Dispositions is in charge of everything that it requires to sell the property, from title to, to finding the buyer, blah, blah, blah. So I got 2 in dispo. I got a personal assistant. I have a business partner who's the CMO and runs finance. He's got a personal assistant. We got a bookkeeper, and that's pretty much it. Now that is the house buying team. Now we have the holding company, which is very similar, but it's not the same.
Let's pivot there in a second. Talk to me about house buying. Is that just the wholesale business, or when you say house buying, are you talking rolling up to fix and flip, or rolling up into portfolioing it?
Yeah, so that is strictly the wholesaling operation.
Just wholesale. That's all it does. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then talk to me about the other side. Do you fix and flip at all?
Not really. So the reason I say not really is because I have a personal company, like my own company that I don't own with Omer. And once in a blue moon, if there is a deal that we're having a hard time selling, or I just look at it and I like it a lot, then I will come in as any other investor and either match the offer that's at the table or beat it, take it down myself, and I will do whatever I will with it, whether it's flipping it.
Just to elaborate, you're going to match the offer that another investor is offering your wholesale company for the property. Correct. You match it, so your wholesale company earns that spread, and all the guys get paid, and you square up with your partner just fine, and then you handle that yourself.
And I'll go flip it or do something else with it. I got like 2 of those going on right now, so it's not anything crazy, but it is a significant source of like side income on the side, and it is something that I'll do, but not as a company. We're not doing it as a company.
Yep. So walk me through the cash flow quadrant. You've you've got a business. It's producing, you turn your cash into really marketing that you've employed to turn marketing dollars into opportunities. Those opportunities become properties in which you take down on the sales acquisition company. You then wholesale those off, generate profit, right? You've increased your dollars, your original cash through that process. And then how do you employ those dollars?
So what your question was employing dollars, like what do you mean specifically by that?
How do you put those dollars to work in the form of turning them into assets?
Okay. So profits. Okay. So we're talking after. Okay. So yes, that is a great question. The formula that we have today is, first and foremost, we're not accumulating assets or any of that until the wholesaling business is like good. And when I mean good, I'm meaning like, okay, it's got no debt on the books. It's running a healthy margin. Let's call it a healthy margin. Let's call it at least 25%, right? After owners are taking their pay as well.
You're talking net. Everybody's been paid, including the owners.
Yep. 25%. And that the business has a minimum set of cash in the bank, like that non-negotiable, don't touch me, like, emergency type
money. Stack that cash for a rainy day, whatever, or opportunistic day.
Correct. So like for us, so like our overhead, it's tough to tell you an exact number because it fluctuates with commissions and all that stuff. But let's just call it somewhere between 100 to call it 100. Let's just call it 100 for the sake of this argument.
100,000.
100,000 a month in overhead.
Yep.
So, honestly, like and I'll be transparent on this call. Like we're not even there right now. We're at about, we want to be at about 500,000 in cash, with no debt on the company's books.
You're saying stack cash, 500,000 where you want to be.
Yeah, because the way I come up with that formula, everyone's different. You got to do what feels good. 500 just feels good. Like I got 100 to play with, like for escrows that we got to make on properties, or, there's always cash requirements that come up even when you're wholesaling, right? Like sometimes the sellers need advances, so we got to front them money so they can get out of the properties or whatever. Sometimes we got to fix things prior to closing to get a deal done. We got to put escrow deposits down here in South Florida. Some people are like, well, why do you only put $100? Well, in a competitive market like South Florida, if you're only going to put $100, you're going to lose out on a lot of deals.
You're not buying the property.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got to put up more money. We got to be more competitive. We got to stand out from the competition. So we do. So 100,000 at any given point in time is a good number for us at that. So then it's not really cash reserves because that's being used. That's out. So it leaves us about 4 months of cash at any given time of expenses, and that feels good. Like I feel like, okay, like if shit hits the fan, we can go a whole quarter with like spending every single dollar without making any cuts, and like we can be good. So I'm good with that number. So after that number,
it allows you to operate from a position of strength, doesn't it?
100%.
Yeah. Without that pressure or mental or insecurity. Yeah.
100%. So that's where we're at now. There's another caveat to it, because one of the things that we didn't talk about, because you might be asking, well, if you're not there yet, why are you buying assets? Well, the reason is because of the tax advantages. So we've been able to figure out a loophole where we're able to use the money that we would quote unquote pay the IRS with, and basically use that money to acquire the assets and basically like wipe off our tax bill. So we're not technically using cash that would have stayed in reserves. We're basically using money that we would have paid the IRS to buy these assets. And that's a more advanced topic.
You've got a line item there that you have, either you've accounted for it one way or another, what you're going to have to pay the IRS in taxes from your earned income.
Correct.
You're buying assets, and then you're probably doing an accelerated depreciation.
Correct. And I track that on my balance sheet at all times. Like at any given time in the year, I know what I owe the IRS and what I'm going to owe the IRS this year. And so I'm always thinking about, okay, well, if I make these moves, how can I lower that amount and still create a better net worth or improve my balance sheet?
You've got your eye on the ball, and then you also have an understanding of the levers that you can pull to offset your liability.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Correct.
Does that play into your calculation then when you're buying an asset? When you're putting you want to buy whatever, an 8-plex, does that play into your calculation? The tax that you no longer have to pay the federal government as a result of this? Does that play into your calculation when making that thing pencil from a return basis?
It doesn't.
Mm-hmm. And that's because
it's a motivating factor
that may lead you into the market. Yes.
It's a motivating factor, but at the end of the day, and we're kind of getting into deeper conversations here, and we could go wherever way you want. But when I look at an asset, here's the way I think about it. I don't know if the way I think about it is, maybe there are better ways to think about it, but this is how I think about it. I'm like, all right, real estate, let's just acknowledge this. Like, real estate is not passive, okay? And it's a headache. It comes with lots of headaches. And so I have to ask myself, what will justify the headache? Like, what am I willing to give up in exchange for the headache? So I'm trying to not fool myself into thinking, well, I'm going to buy these assets and everything's going to be great, right? I mean, like this year alone, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we probably acquired several $1 million in assets. And yeah, they're going to be producing on pro forma when they're all done, $80,000 or $85,000 a year in net cash flow, accounting for vacancies and all that stuff. The reality is I bought all those assets at the beginning of the year. I haven't seen that money at all. Like that money should come in next year, essentially. But even then I still probably won't see it because I got to build reserves in that company. And it takes time, and you're pushing, like one of my friends, we like to talk about, like, you're a running back in the NFL, like looking for the holes, and like you're getting hit from each angle, to build this. It's not an easy build, but the way I ask myself is, all right, what's worth the headaches? And so I look at, all right, if I had 100K, I can get 100K and I can put it in mutual funds, and I can probably safely earn 10% with what I know, right? And that's without lifting a finger. I just put it there, set it and forget it, done.
Yep.
So it's like, all right, well, if I can earn 10% there without doing anything and without much work, like, what justifies the headache? So in my mind, I'm like, double. So if I can get 20%, I'll take the headache on, because that's double the speed, right? So
correct.
So when I buy an asset, I got to get minimum 20% return on the equity. And it's not or cash on cash return. It's not an exact science though, too, because through forced appreciation, you're getting more equity than what you would have got in the stock too, right?
Correct.
But still, I'm working for the forced appreciation. It's not like it's magically appearing. Like,
nope.
I'm having to work for it.
Yeah. It's called force for a reason. Somebody has to force it.
Someone has to force it.
Someone's got to make it happen. Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. It's like, all right, if I can get 20% on the money that I'm investing in, then I'm good. I'll hold. I'll keep these properties. Now, if the property makes sense and it has equity, but it's not giving me that 20% return, great, sell it. Because if it's only giving me 10%, I can just sell it and I can go put in the stock for 10 and it washes, and it's the same net outcome. Doesn't do any difference. So that's how I look at it,
Yeah. I'm going to take a hard left here. Who's, as a child, who had the greatest single influence in your life?
As a child?
Yeah.
Probably my dad.
Yeah. How did he make that impact?
I would say through many conscious and unconscious ways. But my dad was always there for me as a kid, and just, well, my whole life, really. He was not an entrepreneur, but he was very noble. An honorable person, would never cheat, never lie, never steal, never deceive, never manipulate. And he also was he has very high standards. And I think those are some of the things that rubbed off on me as a kid. Like, one of the things he always told me was, like, if you're going to do something, do it right, or don't fucking do it, and he just had very, very high standards. Like, for him, right, or doing something done was like excellent. Like, cleaning the car is an example. Like, if there's a small little scratch or a small little dink, he would get on your ass about that and be like, look, you're not doing it right. missed it, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
he was there to point out every flaw and error and issue with everything. And one of the reasons why he never brought anyone to wash his car or cut his lawn or any of that, because no one can do it as good as yourself. No one, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say him, man. He was always there, you know, was always there for me going into sports and pushing me to always be better. Not putting up with my shit, disciplining me whenever I got out of line, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. In your office, you've built a really good team, a very productive team. What's your culture like?
Very eclectic. I think that's the best part of our company, is the culture. I think everybody really gets along. We all work from home, so that's something unique about us. We've never had an office, so everybody works from home, does their own thing.
Even when operating just in South Florida, everybody works from home.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, we pay higher salaries than mostly anyone in our industry. We take care of our people. There's no like clock in, clock out type of deal. You know, it's just like, you know, this is what you're held accountable to. You get the results, you're good. You don't get them, we're not good. You know, people can take as much vacation time as they want. They can step out of the office whenever they want. Total autonomy. It's interesting to see, but we all like, you know, we're all pretty close knit. This Saturday, as a matter of fact, we have a yacht party. So we're all going out on a yacht. And we just, you know, we like to get together in person at least once a month, just because we never see each other in person. But yeah, I don't know if that is a good job of describing it. I'm so close to it that sometimes I'm probably not the best person to describe it, because like we live and breathe it, you know.
Was a culture created consciously or unconsciously? Yeah.
Very consciously.
Yeah. From the get-go.
Very, very consciously. And just like how I'm now with no shirt, like we'll go do our daily huddle today at 3:30. You'll see me on my bike riding around, you know, on the huddle, and everyone's just reporting their numbers. You know, data is very important. So like we, you know, all the data is very transparent for everyone to see. I think transparency is like a big thing in the company, and trust and love. And like, you know, I don't really want people in the company that don't want to be there and don't want to like learn and grow and get better at what they're doing, you know? So yeah. And there's very little drama in our company, if any at all, right now. COVID was good for that. COVID helped us get rid of a couple people that were good employees, but were kind of dramatic and sometimes creating drama and little toxic bouts of energy here and there. And when they left after COVID, man, like the team just got better. We got smaller and more profitable, you know?
That's cool. That's cool. This business, you know, if you go on Facebook, everything's Lambos and Rolexes. So we both know from being in the industry as long as we have, it's not always that way. What's the biggest challenge you've had to go through? Maybe a loss, maybe a tough deal, maybe a tough property, maybe personal challenges. What was that, and how did it impact you in the business side of things?
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge, set of challenges was like 2019. Going through a bad marriage that I finally, you know, we actually got divorced officially with my ex-wife this year, which was great. I left the house last year in December 2020, but at that time it was very, very toxic at home. So like the toxicity from that, and then just the business going bad, man. Like we probably had about, gosh, I want to say at least 4 or 5 million in debt from like flips that were literally all of those flips. And when I say all of them, like I'm not exaggerating, like they all went bad, every single one.
Wow.
Yeah, we had like $40,000 or $50,000 a month in debt service going out. That was just draining the bank accounts. That was the first time in my life I actually had to call the lenders up and be like, look, guys, like I've never had to do this before. I'm not happy about doing this, but like I either pay you or I pay my team. Like that's where I'm at right now. So like I'm gonna have to pay them to keep this thing rolling. And like, don't worry, like we'll get through this, but I'm just letting you know where I'm at. So we ended up getting all those things resolved with the lenders. They were, nice enough to also work with us and not like squeeze us for every single penny. That happened. They still, they got everything that they were promised. But then, like, how some of these lenders are, like, in addition, because you don't make good on your payments, then the interest that you promised them from 10 goes to like 20.
Correct.
And they add on all these extra fees. And I'm like, look, I got no problem paying you the 10, but I can't do all these extra fees. Like, we just don't have the cash to bring to do that.
That's
you
right.
know?
Yep.
So we made good on all of those properties. We only had to give one back, which just was a clusterfuck. A long story short, like, we didn't even get to start. Like, that's how bad it was. Like, it was a deal where the roof was caving in and the city flagged it. So it was just accumulating fines from day one.
Right.
And we were like, oh, not a big deal. Like, it's just for the roof. Like, we should go in there. We could probably get a roof permit like in 2 weeks and we can redo the roof, so we thought.
Yeah.
6 months later, still no roof permit.
Oh,
I mean, like, they were making it such a headache to get this roof permit. And then we're just like, bro, like, there's no way we're going to make money on this. Like, I don't even know if we're gonna be able to get their money back. So that was the only one we ended up giving back. And that was coming out of 2019. And then we all know what happened in 2020, right?
Yep.
So, like, we're just like getting through like the ocean, like we're just like putting our heads up and we're like finally breathing, starting to breathe.
Yep.
Q1 2020 looks like it's going to be the best Q1 we've had in a long time.
Yep.
It was, I'll never forget, because my stomach literally knotted. And then for the first time ever after that, I remember giving a presentation or a speech to the whole company and literally broke down and cried because I didn't think we were going to make it. Like, I really thought the ship was going under. I'm like, dude, we just got hit too many ways.
Yeah.
So basically 2020, we had about, we were set to close like 500 and some thousand. I don't remember the exact number, but call it 550 or whatever, set to close Q1 2020. Out of that 550, about just how it is in almost any real estate business, right? Like, a big portion is always set for those last few weeks of the quarter. Always.
Correct. Yes.
So those last few weeks, there's always like, you're always getting on everyone. Like, come on, like, where are we at?
We got to get this done. Yeah. It's got to close.
So it's like 250 left to close Q1. And literally once when COVID came, it was March.
Yep.
That 250 just went to zero. Like, deposits, buyers, no problem.
Everybody bailed.
We walk away from our deposits. We don't care.
Right.
Lenders, who had given loan commitments to these buyers to close,
pulling them back.
We don't care. We're pulling back. Everyone just pulled back. Obviously, we couldn't resell them for anywhere near what we wanted to.
Correct.
So it was a clusterfuck. I thought we were going to go under. We announced, in order to stay afloat, everyone in the company took a 50% pay cut.
50,
50, including the owners, all of us, 50%. Then, like, after a month or a month and a half, I think we bumped it up to like 70, and everyone went to 70%. And then after like another month or two, I was like, I was telling my business partner, I'm like, this doesn't feel right, man. Like, I think we need to pay what we would pay someone. And that means that some people just gotta go. Like, we just can't do it,
Yep.
And so we did. We ended up making some hard decisions, and I think two main people left. But these two main people, some people were like, "Oh, that's nothing." I'm like, "Yeah, but those two main people were with me for 4 or 5 years. Like, they're not easy decisions to make, And then we had also some other VAs in the marketing department and stuff, but I didn't have to make those fires, so it wasn't that hard for me. And then we restructured. I don't even remember. Did we make money in 2020? Yeah, we did. We ended up making money in 2020 and turned it around. It wasn't a great year, but it was still profitable. And here we are in 2021, about to close off the year. And we're doing well. Like, we're almost at that 500 cash target from literally losing everything. I mean, so 19, I didn't mention that. After all those rehabs and all those properties were off the books, 500K net losses.
500K net loss 19.
Yeah. Just from the properties, not including the business. Just in those rehabs, 500K net
just inside the
losses.
Rehab component of the business. Yeah.
Correct. So it was brutal. It was real brutal.
It seems like it would have been maybe easier. Would have been easy just to give up and say, I'm done. I quit.
Oh yeah, dude. I
I'm
can't.
gonna go do something else. This is way too hard. This isn't to liken back to what you said earlier. This is not worth the headache. Well, I mean, what was inside of you that even kept you going?
The thought crossed my mind so many times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was even funny because at that time, working with the mutual friend, Joe.
Yeah.
And Joe's here talking, and like he starts bringing me on to his talks to start talking and like talking to all these people.
Yeah.
And I said, if I'm going to do this, like in order for me to feel whole doing this, I have no problem teaching people, but I'm not like, I can't sugarcoat things. Like for me to feel whole while doing this, like my job is going to be to teach people from these mistakes that I just made and be open and vulnerable about these mistakes. Because if I try and be any other way, like it's just not who I am. Like I just can't do it. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, to answer your question, I mean, dude, I don't know. Like, it's just not in my DNA to quit. It's very hard. Like, I mean, there's things I will give up. Don't get me wrong. And I think from a spiritual perspective, I think there are things in life that you have to give up on and let go, right? Like, for instance, like the situation with my wife when we got divorced, but I mean, keep in mind, we were together fucking 10 years. Like, and it wasn't just like from one time to the next, like I chose to give up. No, like we fucking saw 5 different therapists. Like we spent tons of money trying to make this shit work. Traveled the world, going to go see the best relationship speakers. Like I did everything in my fucking power.
Yeah.
And it just got to a point where like everything is no longer enough. And so in that presentation, when I told you I had cried to the team, because I really thought the company was going to go under. My message was like, look, if you want to ride with us so the wheels fall off, like you guys are more than welcome, but I don't know what's going to happen. And if you guys want to leave now, like you can go ahead and leave now, and I told them, I'm like, look, if this shit goes under, then fuck it. If it goes under, what's the worst that can fucking happen?
Right. How many left?
Yeah.
How many left?
For time, I'm good.
No. How, when you had that conversation with them,
no one
left.
No one.
Everybody
said that they would ride with me till the wheels fall off. Yeah. Which was cool. Even with the 50% pay cuts, no one left. I mean, mind you too, it was COVID, right? Like, where you were going to go at that time.
Right.
Like right when the world was falling apart, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And everybody was very understanding and like, and it's like, and I also made them aware of the fact, like, hey, it's not you guys, like it's all of us. Like I took a 50% pay, like we're all taking it. It's not just the employees,
Right. Yep.
So yeah, did I answer your question?
That's perfect. For somebody, maybe, how about this? For somebody newer in the business, what advice would you give them?
In the wholesaling business?
Yeah. Well, let's say the wholesaling, the real estate, however you want to define it, wholesaling, fix and flip, those acquiring assets, income producing assets. Well,
let's for wholesaling in general. I think, I don't think there's very many people, and maybe I'm wrong, but I've been speaking to wholesalers and I've been in the industry for a while. Yep. So like, I don't think there's very many wholesalers that get into this business to become wholesalers. Like, everyone's end game is the assets and acquiring the assets. Yeah. And so with that being said, I would tell any new wholesaler to not forget that end game and to figure out how to position yourself to do that as soon as possible. Not like, because we fell for the trap of, like this thing is spitting out a ton of cash. And what would happen if we grew it 2x or 3x or 4x? And then at that point, we can go acquire even more. So then we delayed the end game or delayed the end goal for this, sight of this is going to happen and fuel this even more. Yeah. And then it didn't happen. Now, if it would have happened, who's to say we would have actually bought? Maybe we would have been then thinking, well, this should work. What if we double it again? What would happen then? Right. And you keep playing this like game of like, always chasing this thing, this unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
And, in real estate, like this, if you were building some type of like patent and service, or you had some type of SaaS company, or something that had true inherent value to the company that you can sell for a multiple, great, go build this asset. But the real estate business, the wholesaling business, is not the asset. The asset is the actual machine that acquires the assets. But if it's not acquiring the assets, there is no asset. Like the asset
There's
is
no
you.
business. Correct.
Yeah. The asset is you. And so like, don't lose sight of that, and like, make sure that you start doing that as soon as possible. I remember I met with this young guy who was like asking me for advice.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say he was probably 25 years old. And he was asking me for advice on how to grow his business, right? Like, but here's the difference. So he started buying rental property from day one, and then was like, well, I got all this cash now and capital. He's like, I want to learn the wholesale, just because like, it's really hard for me to find these deals. So I started going through his numbers. Long story short, he had like a net worth of like 5 mil. And he was bringing in like 500,000 a year clean, like net cash flow from his portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. I'm like, every wholesaler wants to be you.
You're going backwards.
And you're going backwards.
Yeah.
It makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
But I hope that like, if for the newer guys listening, like that sits in their head, like the goal is the assets and the security that comes from knowing that, like, man, like the income in the wholesaling business is not predictable. It's not consistent. And it always requires you hunting for the next deal for that to come. And then there's things that shorten it, right? Like reality is, right? Like, I don't know how things are for you in your wholesaling business now, but like for us, it's the end of the year. So like, you can spend all the marketing dollars you want right now. You can crank up all the engines you want, but the reality is it's the end of the year. Like
you're not closing anything else.
Things slow down.
Correct.
Like people just want to stop selling right now at this point. So like,
holidays are different here in the north where I am, and the weather's moved in. It's a different story.
Yeah. Business pauses. What do? That's just the fucking nature of the business. Like, that's just how it works. You know what I mean? So it's like the rental income for the most part, like that's consistent. Like that thing is going to come in. Like, there might be some occasions where you might lose a tenant paying, but like the predictability of it is way, way more predictable.
Yeah. What I heard you say is, remember why you got into the business in the first place. And that really means for you, identify the fact that you want an asset producing income. We're going to call that passive. I'll use it in quotes, because as you said, nothing's totally passive. Right. There's still work associated with it, but it's not the same kind of work. So what I hear you saying is the wholesale is the entry into the business, whether you fix and flip or don't, whatever that may be. But your goal is to acquire assets, to put them on the balance sheet, to reduce your cash that you pay the federal government through all the tax benefits that one gets from doing this, and just to keep that machine, the acquisition machine, going, so you can earn income there and place it by holding assets.
100%.
By holding assets. Yeah.
And if you start doing that, and you start looking at Facebook or Instagram, or going to masterminds, or going to events, or anything in a social gathering where people who are not being as disciplined as you are doing that, you're going to feel like you're doing something wrong, because they're going to be driving nicer cars. They're going to be living in bigger houses. They're basically going to have all the shiny objects and all the external displays of wealth, while you're slowly building this thing. But what they don't see, and what you don't see, is that at the rate that they're growing and doing this thing, and the way that you're doing it, in the next 5-10 years, you will be light years ahead of them, just from the exponential component of the asset. And it's hard for our brains to see that, because our brains only think logically, like sequentially. They don't think exponentially. Like,
correct.
We don't realize that, 2 times 2, or 2 to the second power to the third to the fourth, and you start adding that up, and it really grows really, really fast. Way before, like, when the ways were like, wow, I never in a million years imagine that, but it does. And so like, you really have to take a step back, like you said, and like, look at that, and there's grit and discipline that are required for that.
I may butcher the quote. I know you're a fan of Buffett, as I am too. I think he said something like, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world.
Right. Yeah.
I'm close on that. You guys get the general idea there. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's where you're headed with that.
Yeah. And like, if you look at all the wealthiest people in real estate, and if you study that, No one's a wholesaler.
No one's a wholesaler. Nope. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Right. You get there through asset ownership.
Yeah.
Right. Through compound interest, through all the benefits that one gets that are derived from owning things. All right. So you've been through.
If I can say one last thing, like you want to know how valuable your wholesaling business is, go to a bank. Ask them to lend you money for your wholesaling business. Right. See how well that goes.
Yeah.
Then go to the bank if you have assets that have value and are not over leveraged.
Piece
and
of
go
property.
To the bank.
Yep.
Yeah. And talk money. Like
night and day.
Night and day.
Yep. You're exactly right. So you've been in here since 2013. You've been through some up and downs. 19 was bumpy. First part of 2020 was like life or death, and the team bound together. Probably through
quarter 1 and quarter 2 of 2020 was a complete fucking shit show.
Yeah.
And then quarter 3 and quarter 4, we bounced back.
Through what you've built, probably through the piece that cuts all the way through, the culture that you've built, everybody bound together and saw it through. And this year sounds like a very good year. Where are you guys headed?
The major focus, honestly, right now has been growing our holding company, Freedom Cap. And so we're
Freedom Cap. I love that name.
Yeah. So we're in the process right now of building out the property management, which has been a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
We hired like this third-party manager.
Yeah.
And did it in the beginning because we're like, dude, we don't want to deal with it. It's not worth the hassle.
Would you agree with me? The property management specifically of rental properties. Now, I'm not talking commercial properties. I'm talking rental properties, houses, things that people occupy is the hardest end of this business.
Of like the buy and hold side?
Of wholesaling, of fix and flip, of buy and hold, of asset acquisition. It's the hardest end of the business.
I haven't done it long enough to say like we've just started.
You've been through some bumpy fix and flips.
Oh yeah.
So maybe for you it's not.
Yeah, I'm a systems guy. And so creating systems and putting systems in place and using tech to like simplify things, I think those are all things, like all strengths that I have.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so like applying that to the property management company, we've seen huge differences. Like as soon as we hired someone to like own the property management division and they stepped in to take over the existing property managers, what was doing, like we just saw how messy and sloppy it was. It was just like a disaster.
It got revealed. Yep.
Yeah. Like we had no idea that it was that bad until like we sent someone in-house to really step in. So that's the major focus. Like when I look at the numbers there, so like right now, an example, like the assets we bought this year, we're getting about a 5 to 6x on average equity multiple, meaning for every dollar we put into that company, it's spitting back about 5 to 6x in equity. It's spitting out an average of like 20% cash, return on equity. So a dollar put in is giving us 5 to 6x back in equity. That equity is producing a 20% return on cash flow. And that's not including the cost X. So like,
that's pre-tax benefit.
Yeah. So like, I'm super bullish. Like I don't know anything else that's going to do that for me. I mean, maybe there's some potential verticals for like stuff in the crypto world, but like, I don't have the time, nor do I have the desire to like get into that and learn about it. Like, this is what I'm doing. I'm good at it. Right. It's where my focus is at. I'm not going to like get distracted. Yeah. So that's the focus right now. It's just building that up. And getting financially free. I think at the rate that we're going within the next 2 to 3 years, I should be, 100% financially free from where we're at in the properties without needing the wholesale business, which I'll still keep running. But my plans are eventually to, I want to disrupt a different industry, honestly. Like I want to get into the health space.
Yeah.
That's where my heart's at.
Yep.
But in the meantime, we're going to do this, we're going to grow this. But eventually I do want to put someone else in charge to run the wholesale business and not be involved in day to day. Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. Let's move into our final segment, what I call for impact. What's your favorite quote?
Favorite quotes? I would say it's a quote from a spiritual master named Paul Twitchell. It goes something to the effect of, I'm going to paraphrase it, but basically, love it's not like it's not a noun, or what is it? It's not something that you can describe. It's an active demonstration that you actually show for somebody else. And he says, he then adds that if you desire love, then realize that the only way to get love is to first fill yourself with it until you become a magnet of it. And once you become a magnet of it, then you can give it. And the only way to get it is to give it first. So that's my favorite quote.
When did that come into your life?
I was young, man. Probably call it sometime around 2008. Okay. So what is that? 13 years ago? Yeah. And I'm 33, so about 20 years ago.
Yeah. What do you think holds most investors back?
Holds them back, like stops them from
taking action?
accomplish, or just or keeps them at a certain level and not going to the next level.
Yeah, let's say it keeps them at a certain level and not allowing them to progress to the next level.
There's a lot to that, but I would say that obviously discipline is number one. Like staying disciplined is it's easier said than done, especially when things are going well.
Yes.
When things are going well, it's much harder to stay disciplined and just
correct.
I can.
There's so many good things in your life. The choices become rather abundant, right?
Right.
It's tough to stay in that lane with exactly what got you there.
I would say that, but I think the biggest thing, and discipline goes towards this, but I think it really has to do with seeing reality as clear as you can possibly see it without any biases or prejudices or clouding or coloring, and then making accurate decisions based upon the view or the lens of which you see reality. So like when you study guys like Buffett or Dalio or some of these greatest investors, like they don't fool themselves, Right. They don't get shiny object syndrome. Like, Buffett, since we both like Buffett, we can talk about Buffett, but Buffett talks about like how before he says yes to an opportunity, he probably said no 99 times.
Correct.
And but not exaggerating, what I mean? And at that level, with billions in the bank, when you can afford to put money everywhere,
anywhere, yes.
Think about the discipline that requires. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's hard to do that when you have $100,000 in the bank and you're like, oh, well, I could buy these 3 different deals, But like, are you really ruthless in your criteria and your objective? And can you see the risks in that deal? And can you see what can go wrong?
All the things that can go wrong. Yes.
And can you account for all those things? Right. So like. Back in 2019, the reason we got into all those problems was because we weren't looking at those things. Because it was the golden child with the Midas touch. Nothing can go wrong.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you learn to really see life differently. I think that's the biggest thing. I think the most successful investors don't fool themselves, and they have a very, very strong defensive approach. I think investing is a defensive game. It's not an offensive game. So that's a different approach that you have to take if you're playing this game. And I think none of them, the best investors also acknowledge that they don't know what they don't know. And they realize that it's like impossible to predict the future or what's going to happen in the market or any of these things. And so they make decisions knowing that they don't know.
I'm going to drop another Buffett quote on you to piggyback on what you just said. You said real estate's a defensive game. Buffett says there's 2 rules. Number 1, don't lose money. Number 2, don't forget rule number 1.
Don't forget rule number 1. Yeah.
It's a defensive game, right? It's really challenging to make it back as soon as you lose it. Outside of real estate, what are you passionate about?
If I can say one last thing too, but Buffett also says that optimism is the investor's like worst enemy.
Yeah.
And like pessimism is an investor's best friend or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know the exact quote, but something like that. What was the question again? Outside
of real estate, what are you most passionate about?
I would definitely say health.
Yeah.
Just like when it comes to really understanding what is right now in this country, easily, I think the statistics are under what they really are, but about 50 to 60% of the population right now has a chronic disease in this country. And again, I think that's underestimated. I think it's greater than that. And so I'm really, really fascinated by why. Like why is these chronic diseases widespread? And when then you start looking at hunter-gatherers and you start looking at Paleolithic humans and all these things and realizing like, okay, these diseases did not exist before.
Yeah.
This is a creation of modern life. So I'm really fascinated by learning about this. Like why are these things happening?
Modern life. You really mean modern food life.
Yeah. Well, it's everything, because it's not just, it's there's so many things combined. It's not just food is a huge component, but it's everything, man. Like we're not breathing good air inside our homes. We're exposed to poor quality lighting. We're not outside running and moving around like we used to. It's very multifaceted. And yeah, I really like to understand why these things happen and what causes these diseases, and then how to reverse them, and how to actually nip it. You know, so that's where my heart's at.
What's your favorite way to make impact?
Talking, that we're doing now, right?
Yeah.
Writing. I really like to write. I would say talking, writing, and just one-on-one conversations with regular people. It's super cool. Like I got a lot of neighbors here that like have asked me for like, we run into questions and then they realize that I'm into health and they're like, oh, well, what should I do about this or this? And then they'll come back like weeks later and be like, yo, I tried that and like I feel so good. Like, thank you. And I'm like, no problem. Like, I love that. You know?
Yeah. No, that's way cool.
Yeah.
This has been a terrific talking to you. Let me do this again. Let me give you the last word. If people want to follow you or connect with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Facebook. I would say Facebook. You can go to facebook.com and just look me up, Gabe Garcia. I think 311.
We'll drop a link to it in the show
we'll
notes.
drop the link in there. I think it's Gabe Garcia 311. And yeah, that's the best way.
Good. Well, I really appreciate your time here. So for everybody here at Real Grit, I'm Neil Timmins, reminding you that real estate requires real grit. I'll see you next time. If you like our content and want more, you can access it at realgritpodcast.com. You hear it guest after guest. Instinctively, you already know it. But let me call it out. The most expensive action is inaction. The real estate market is full of opportunities. You just need to uncover them. You can build a business that lasts for years, makes monumental impact in the lives of those that you love. It's not just about business, but about the freedom you get because of it. Have you ever heard the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I believe that partnering is essential. In fact, I partner with hardworking investors all the time. The point is that you can get a lot further with the right partner. Let me say it again, the right partner. If you've ever thought about partnering with anyone, or if you have a partner now, I encourage you to download my free Partner and Profit Guide, which includes the top 5 must-answer questions to evaluate a profitable partnership. You can find it at www.legacyimpactpartners.com. I'll see you in the next episode.